I casually cooked a full 3-course meal for my friends on a weekday afternoon. They were being particularly stubborn to round up on weekends, the bastards, so I had to plot a way to bring everyone together, and a free, home-cooked meal seemed like the perfect ploy. I made a French onion soup to start, following the recipe from Maddie Matheson, complete with a cheesy crostini. For the main course, I cooked up lemon and parsley sausage, mashed potatoes, gravy, and a crunchy salad. My friends were complaining they hadn't eaten mashed potatoes for a long time, so I figured I would whip up a batch special just for them. Then for dessert, I served homemade rice pudding. It was a ton of work preparing the supper the night before. I started cooking right when I got home from work at 4:45. I thought everything would be a breeze, but this wouldn't be a bold Bassan story if disaster didn't strike. 2 of the special bowls I bought for the French onion soup fell and smashed up behind my stove. I thought, well, that sucks, now I have to drive back to the city and buy more. So I climbed up on my counter to clean the broken glass, rested my knee on my electric stove, and the damn thing started cracking like thin ice. Looking down, I realized I had just busted my bloody stove. It was like a series of unfortunate events moment. So I got off the counter and just stood looking at my broken stove like a moron, wondering what the hell just happened. I googled if I could still use it for cooking. Turns out that's a good way to get electrocuted. I still had about 6 hours of cooking ahead of me, and now I needed to buy a whole new stove and bowls. An hour later, I managed to acquire and assemble a new stove, clean the broken glass, and get started. I got the soup going first, as the best French onion soups need to caramelize and cook for a long time to bring out the flavor from the onions. Next, I cranked out the salad, mashed potatoes, and gravy. And then lastly, I finished with the rice pudding. It was just about 1 a.m. when I finished prep and made myself a small bowl of soup and rice pudding as a reward. The day of the dinner went smoothly thanks to my prep. I was able to serve my friends all the food piping hot. The most satisfying thing for me was after the meal, walking over to them and collecting their empty plates, seeing the satisfied, overstuffed looks on their faces. I'd call that a job well done. It's a far cry from the days I used to struggle just making scrambled eggs. They asked me why I would go to all the trouble to cook for them. The answer is simple. I take no greater joy from anything other than utilizing my talents to serve the people I love. There's nothing else I would rather do with my time. Spring has arrived. Early sakura cherry blossoms and umis, plum blossoms, are blooming, and dreadful goodbyes have begun. It was March and April last year when I was saying goodbye to my elementary schools and teachers. It felt like I had already spent a lifetime in Japan. Really, that 4 months was a drop in the bucket. That same last 4 months of 2023 have flown by in comparison. Perhaps it's because I'm spending more time doing meaningful things, so the time goes by faster. I picked up playing guitar over the winter and I've learned about 20 songs. When first practicing guitar, the strings hurt my fingers quite a lot, but after about 2 weeks of consistent practice, I developed calluses that hardened. Now I can press down on the strings with zero pain. Here's a few choice songs for your pleasure.
Their hands were still on fire and their hooves were made of steel. Their horns were black and shiny and their hot breath he could feel. A bolt of fear went through him as they thundered through the sky. For he saw the riders coming along, and he heard their mournful cry. The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamed I held you in my arms. When I awoke, sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. So please don't take my sunshine away. Now the stranger started talking, made it plain to folks around. There was only a ranger, wouldn't be too long in town. He came here to take an outlaw back alive, or maybe dead, and said it didn't matter, he was after Texas Red. After Texas Red. Wasn't long before the story was led to Texas Red. But the outlaw didn't worry, men that tried before were dead. 20 men had tried to take him, 20 men had made a slip. 21 would be the ranger with the big heart on his hip. Big heart on his hip.
I applied to be a prefectural advisor for Kochi in March. The PAs are JET participants who help organize new arrivals and people who are leaving, as well as plan a training seminar that is held once a year. Part of their responsibility is to be an in-between between JETs and their contracting organizations, so if disagreements arise for whatever reason, the PAs help the JETs negotiate. They also work with JETs who may be facing big problems and try to help them sort through whatever difficulties they can. It's an important job. I hope I get the position. If not, I'll apply again next year. My journeys have taken me all over Kochi. I've been driving around and exploring as much as possible. I like going to capes as they often have magnificent ocean views. This is the footage from 2 separate capes I've visited. The first is a hiking area. The second spot here is well off the beaten path, and it seems the surrounding infrastructure was built more for camping. Forest drives are nice as well, although I've learned that some roads, although pretty, are just death traps. My supervisor took my friend and I raft fishing in Suzu and warned us the raft would be a little rockier than our last outing. He recommended that we eat something small, so I pounded a banana and coffee. At 5 in the morning, he picked us up and we drove out to Suzu. On the drive, I was already feeling a little queasy. You know how sometimes when you make a homemade coffee and it just doesn't taste great? Something is just a little off, and it's kind of gross. Well, this coffee was one of those ones. As a result, it didn't sit well in my stomach. After a winding drive through the darkness towards Suzu, I still wasn't feeling great, but the prospect of fishing suppressed my queasiness. I boarded the boat, and after chucking the fishing gear aboard, I was committed. The next 6 hours we would be out on the ocean, through wind, rain, waves, and storms. Oh, and upset stomachs. Arriving at the raft, our supervisor prepared fishing rods for us. This type of fishing is a little bit unusual to what I'm used to. Instead of casting a line with a little bit of bait, you use a full cage of bait. First you prepare the bait mixture, a stinky fish and shrimp cocktail, and then you fill up a cage with this mixture. Then you have a little hook that you attach a shrimp to. Instead of casting, your rod is just really freaking long, so you stretch it over the ocean and let the bait drop. The bait sinks, and the depth of the bait is important, so you count about 10 seconds as the bait descends. At the 10-second mark, you close the fishing rod and wait for a bite. With the ocean currents, the bait releases a trail underwater, which attracts fish. You hope one goes for your shrimp. So, this is what I did for about 3 hours. All the while I was fishing, I was getting increasingly motion sick, as the ocean rocked the raft to and fro. My supervisor didn't have a problem, but my friend was sick within the first half hour and collapsed on the guardrail. Being the stubborn man I am, I powered through my nausea, but ended up throwing up on the raft after the 3 hours. Let me tell ya, that coffee didn't taste any better coming back up. I attempted to keep fishing after that. I felt pretty good to start with, but every time I stood up to refill the bait cage, I would get a wave of motion sickness. I would have probably thrown up again. Instead, I collapsed into the fetal position on the raft, closed my eyes, and slept until it was time to leave. Perhaps the most disappointing thing is that for all my suffering, I didn't even catch any fish. My supervisor, the lucky bugger, managed to bring himself one, so the trip wasn't entirely in vain. I'm not sure what strategy I will utilize next time. Some people take seasickness medication before they go out on the ocean. Some people recommend you stay standing on the raft to get used to the motion. Anyway, the fish had me beat this one. I'll have to fight back harder if I'm gonna catch anything. But wait, there's more. My fishing disasters don't stop there. After fighting my way through a fishing store and beating the shop owner over the head with my broken Japanese, I gained my own personal fishing rod. On my first fishing excursion down to the Saga docks, I only managed to get in 5 casts before my line tangled up irreparably. What I think happened, I was using a lure and some bait, but I didn't have a weight on the end of the line, so when I was casting and reeling back in, the fishing line would have too much slack. As a result, the line wouldn't reel in properly and would instead get horribly tangled. So I now need to buy a new reel, and I spent the rest of that afternoon reading a book next to my broken rod, which wasn't so bad, but my fishing luck, and maybe my luck in general this year, hasn't been great. What can I say? Fish are hard to catch. Hiking is a pastime I have been exploring more, and I've found some decent hiking trails that I go on with a bit of regularity. There's something nice about walking through the bright green forest in the morning, smelling the sweet leaves and grass and the grass and the crisp air. Often trails have flowers planted along them, so no 2 hikes are ever the same. There's always something different blooming. I do love solo hiking. It's nice to be alone on the trail, walking through the trees. It's hard to explain, but I feel a sort of primal pleasure trekking through a forest on foot. I also have a hiking journal I received as a gift from my grandmother, and I make sure to record the hikes I go on, the temperature, trail conditions, weather, time, length, difficulty, special observations, and if on the hike I spot beautiful flowers, I'll press some of them into the journal. I'm training to climb Mount Ishizuchi in April, which is the tallest mountain on the island of Shikoku. Hopefully, my luck turns around for the climb. We'll see. And that's all for now. Take care, and be bold.